that, of course, the opening to the theme song of Twin Peaks, the surreal TV show that premiered in 1990 and was set in the Pacific Northwest. David Lynch, the American filmmaker who created that show with Mark Frost, has died at the age of 78. Last year, he revealed he had been diagnosed with emphysema after a lifetime of smoking. Kyle MacLachlan, the star of Twin Peaks, posted the following on Instagram. 42 years ago, for reasons beyond my comprehension, David Lynch plucked me out of obscurity to star in his first and last big-budget movie. He clearly saw something in me that even I didn't recognize. I owe my entire career and life, really, to his vision. What I saw in him was an enigmatic and intuitive man with a creative ocean bursting forth inside of him. He was in touch with something the rest of us wish we could get to. Our friendship blossomed on Blue Velvet and then Twin Peaks, and I always found him to be the most authentically alive person I'd ever met. And that message was from actor Kyle MacLachlan of Twin Peaks and the original Dune. And joining me now are two Lynch fans who are also local film experts and happen to be wives. On Zoom, we have Christine Evans, an assistant professor of teaching and cinema studies in UBC's Department of Theatre and Film. Hello again, Christine.
To speak to you again.
And joining me, we have Chelsea Birks, a learning and outreach director at the Cinematic and a sessional instructor at UBC. And welcome to you, Chelsea.
Thanks so much. Sad about the circumstances, but happy
yeah,
to be
it
here.
is. It always difficult to meet somebody in a time like this. Chelsea, what was your initial reaction to hearing about David's death?
Oh my goodness. I was taking a break from teaching a workshop on film violence to high school students this morning, and then one of my coworkers just showed me the Instagram post from his family, and I was totally thrown and had to really collect myself after that. For some reason, David Lynch is one of those figures that I thought would never die. He seems immortal, so I was totally shocked and saddened.
Yeah, it's he sort of seemed ageless as well. When I found out he was 78, I was shocked. In my mind, he's always just maybe in his early 50s, but
Totally.
Yeah, he was kind of mythical. Christine, how did you feel when you found out?
I actually found out from Charlie of the CBC when he called me this morning to ask me if I wanted to be interviewed for this segment.
Bearer of bad news, sorry.
Yes, and I did start to cry.
Oh.
Just because, again, it seems it's really surprising. He was supposed to be eternal, and all of that couscous and transcendental meditation, we were promised that he would be eternal. So yes, very upsetting.
Yeah. It is difficult when you have these people that you connect so strongly to, these heroes. Chelsea, I think Lynch had such a diverse career. I mean, we're sort of lightly talking about his transcendental meditation at the end of his career, but when did you first come across his work?
I think like a lot of people, I came across his work in my early university days, or sometimes people will watch something on TV when they're just hitting adulthood, and it looked like nothing else I had ever seen before. I watched Blue Velvet and Eraserhead in close succession, and I thought that I understood them when they started, and then the films just take you somewhere totally different that you're unprepared for. And it honestly, both films shook me to my core, which I think is a common experience when watching a Lynch film.
I think so, especially when you're on the younger side. Eraserhead was my first introduction as well. Christine, what about you? When did you first experience David?
I feel like I want to say that I first met David. I've never met him, but the first time I saw,
like you know him.
It does feel like you know him. I feel like this is part of the problem and why it hit me so hard is that aw shucks persona that he had was so much at odds with his films, and I feel like it was such an important part of his mystique. But the first time I encountered a David Lynch film, I was in I'm still a know-it-all, but I was like an extreme know-it-all in high school. There was nothing I didn't know. And I watched Blue Velvet with some friends in high school. And I remember at the time, at the beginning of the film, thinking, this is so stupid. This is so cliched. The acting is so bad. I know what's up here. This isn't a good film. And as it continued, I was like, what is going on? I was so wrong, but I don't know why I was wrong. And that sense of kind of not knowing where the film was leading me was definitely part of why it also really, really shook me.
That ability to very subtly set you on your on an edge, to upset you, but you can't quite figure out why. I think was the magic of it. And Chelsea, obviously Lynch known mainly as a filmmaker, but so many people know him primarily for Twin Peaks. What was so special about that show?
I think everything is special about Twin Peaks. I have no idea how it was successful. It obviously was a little bit plagued by controversy, and like the network wasn't always happy with it, but it made such a big impact on pop culture and network TV, despite the fact that it is maybe one of the weirdest things I've ever watched. And I watch a lot of weird stuff. Like, it's basically my job to watch weird stuff. But when I watch Twin Peaks, I'm blown away by how many tonal shifts it has, by how odd all the characters are. There's all these non sequiturs. There's a lady with a log. And it seems like it could be a comedy, but then it's dreadful. Like, it's so terrifying. And there's some really memorable scenes that will also just like pull the rug out from under you. I mean, there's lots of theories about what it's about, or like trying to pull all the threads together. But honestly, I think that it's special because it's utterly unique. There's nothing else like it. And it's amazing that it got made.
I mean, it is shocking to a certain degree that it did get made, and that it was so, accepted so dearly and still has such a lasting impact. Christine, I understand that the two of you and a few other people got matching Twin Peaks tattoos. Is that true? I would love to know the story behind that. Was it a wild night? Oh, I'm looking at Chelsea's right now. There you go. And it's very simple, just two Twin Peaks. I love that. Why did you guys decide to do that?
It was a tattoo pact that we had with a group of friends. So it was me and Chelsea and our friends Sean and Lindsay. And we just decided that we'd been watching Twin Peaks. We'd been revisiting it in preparation for Twin Peaks: The Return. So this was the lead up to Twin Peaks: The Return airing in 2017. And it was a weekly activity. We would just go to Sean and Lindsay's house every single week to watch the show. And it just became such an enormous part of our lives. We were all Lynch fans anyway, but this was like such a bond that we decided that it was worth getting these tiny tattoos to commemorate it. So yeah, it was a real bonding experience.
I could imagine, and even more poignant now, of course. In 1986, David Lynch actually did an interview with CBC TV Midday about his film Blue Velvet. We'll have a listen.
I grew up in the Northwest in a very, very beautiful world, and a lot of my life has been discovering this strange sickness, and it's got a fascination to me. And I love the idea of going into something and discovering a world and being able to watch it and experience it.
What do you mean by this strange sickness?
Well, there are things going on that are hidden, that we don't know about, but somehow we are drawn to at least wanting to see it, wanting to watch it maybe from a distance. And this film allows a person to become a voyeur and to see this and have an experience of a world that was hidden.
Christine, even fans of Lynch's work do describe it as disturbing at times and have a hard time watching it again. How do you square your love and your enthusiasm with how challenging his work is?
It's a great question. I think it's so key to his filmmaking that it has that dual appeal. And just listening to that clip with him talking about sort of this suggestion that there's like an underside to things. And I feel like for Lynch, it's not that there's an innocent world and then there's like an evil world and they're opposed to one another. It's two sides of the same coin. They prop one another up. They need one another. They're codependent. And his films are such a good reflection of that. So precisely the thing that repels us from them also attracts us to them, and vice versa. As Chelsea already mentioned about Twin Peaks, it's so charming, it's so funny, and it's also absolutely like gruesome and awful to sort of contemplate what's going on in the show. So I mean, I received an email from one of my students actually today, who I used to screen Blue Velvet in my Intro to Cinema Studies class. I just wanted to read it out because I thought it was such an interesting example of this tendency. But the student wrote to me, "Dear Christine, I wanted to write to express my condolences to you at the passing of David Lynch." Thank you, student. "I doubt you remember me, but I took your Intro to Film Studies course in 2019. We watched Blue Velvet, my first Lynch film ever. I hated the film at the time, but it actually changed the way I think about movies. And several years later, I became a huge Lynch fan. I thought of that screening when I heard the news today. Thought you'd like to know. And I think that idea of again feeling quite like repulsed and disturbed, but also actually being able to feel the way that you think about cinema, feeling that change happening within you, is part of what makes his films so attractive and also so revisitable. That said, there are some things from David Lynch that I've watched once that I was like, I don't think I can watch that again because I don't know if I can replicate that feeling. Like the feeling happened once, and it was like, I don't know, it was like falling in love or somebody dying. It happened and now it's gone. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Huh. Chelsea, I don't think anybody will argue about how unique David Lynch was. What do you think influenced him?
I think a lot of things influenced him. And as a cinephile, like the more you understand about movies, the more you appreciate David Lynch because he has so many references to other films, mostly like art house films. He's obviously a big fan of Hitchcock. Like every movie he makes has tons of nods to Vertigo. So there's always these doubled female characters, lots of doppelgangers, lots of like comments on desire and women that are really pulled from Hitchcock, but also European directors. There's a lot of Fellini in there, a lot of absurdity and comedy, a lot of Bergman with like really risky artistic choices and maybe things that are dreamlike or maybe allegorical or maybe not. I know that he also was a painter, an avid painter his whole life, and his films really have this like abstract painterly quality with a lot of symbolism that I think is really interesting and really rich to keep digging into. He was influenced by a ton of stuff, maybe also just his own brilliant, unique brain. It really, every time I see a Lynch movie, I'm like, my brain works like this, but nobody else has captured it so vividly and effectively on screen.
Yeah. And I'll ask you both before I let you go. Chelsea, or actually I'll start with Christine. What do you think his legacy is going to be?
I think his legacy is that cinema is never going to be the same again. I mean, I feel like the last time I felt this was when Jean-Luc Godard died. We've kind of now entered a post-Lynch era, and I feel like if that has been your contribution to cinema, you changed it forever. You changed the way that we think about it and the way that we understand it, and that I don't think that there can be a bigger legacy for a filmmaker, frankly.
Chelsea, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that a lot of people are Lynchian or inspired by Lynch, but there was only one Lynch, and he will be forever uniquely celebrated as Lynch, the same way that Hitchcock or Bergman, like all of these greats, are celebrated. But his legacy lives on. Like, there's no A24 film or recent art house film like Ari Aster, David Eggers. All of these people are really influenced by this idea.
You can
of
see
like,
his imprint on it.
Totally. Yeah. There's like surreal, dark images. I think we'll keep seeing that for a long time to come.
He was a singular talent, and that talent, will be missed. But as you say, it will continue on. I want to thank you both for joining us today. So very appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Of course, Chelsea Birks is a Learning and Outreach Director at the Cinematheque and a Sessional Instructor at UBC. Christine Evans is an Assistant Professor of Teaching and Cinema Studies in UBC's Department of Theatre and Film. And they also happen to be married.